Part 1.
You will hear a telephone conversation in which Francis Drew asks Mr. Harding about an arts club.
First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4.
Hello.
Hello, is that Appleton 363?
It is Harding speaking.
Oh, I'd like to speak to the secretary of the arts club.
Yes, speaking.
Oh, hello. My name is Francis Drew. I just moved to the area. My classmate and we'd be interested in joining the arts club, but we'd like some more information, really. You know, about joining and the sorts of activities you do.
Yes, well, what you want's our calendar. Ask at the library. I'll make sure that there are plenty there by Thursday. That's all right for you?
Yes, fine, thank you. But, would you mind telling me how much it costs to join?
Membership fee for an adult is £2.50 per year, of course.
What exactly does club membership entitle one to?
Entitle you to? Oh, for a start, there's the club events. You get invited to them, of course. They're for members and only, they are free.
What sorts of events are there?
You'll see what they are when you get hold of a calendar. But, well, there's club evening, for instance, once a month, usually Wednesdays from 8 till 10.
And whereabouts do you hold them?
Club evenings, the beach pavilion. Do you know it?
No, I don't think I do. It's not near the seafront, is it?
No, up past the tennis courts on Park Avenue. You know where that is.
No, I'm afraid I don't. We'd soon find it, though.
Quite good. I don't know what your interests are. Music. Got any musical talents?
I'm not sure about talents exactly. I like music. We both do.
Do either of you sing?
Oh, yes. We've both been in choirs.
Well, there you are then. The club's got a very fine choir. Very fine. I'm in it myself, as a matter of fact. We have practices every Friday evening. And it's no good just thinking of joining if you can't make the practices.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
What's the procedure? If we decide to join the choir or any of the other activities, how do we go about it?
You can't get into the choir without an audition. As far as the other sections are concerned, members have to apply through the section's secretary in the first place.
Yes, right. And the fee again, I've written it down somewhere.
£2.50 each.
And where do we send it? To you?
No, I'm the secretary. It's the treasurer who deals with that. I'll give you his name if you want to write it down.
Yes, please.
His name is Hosegood. Hose, and then Good.
Yes.
Initial P, address 3 Clay Hill, Appleton.
Right. And it's all right to send a cheque?
That's the usual, yes. Payable to Appleton Arts Club. Appleton, APPLETON. Oh, and better put your address on the back as you're new. And incidentally, there's a newsletter out 3 times a year, just to keep club members up to date with what's going on. They're sent to everyone.
That's good. Just one last thing. Would you mind telling me what the other sections are so that I can tell my classmate and we...
The players, that's our act group I've told you. Choir, you know about. There's the gramophone circle, the music workshop, the literary and discussion group. Oh, that one meets in different members' homes. Then there's the studio workshop and, what have I missed out? Oh, yes, The art talks. That's the lot, I think. Ah, the Film Society. That's the other one. Got them all.
Ah, yes, just about. Thank you very much. You've been very helpful.
Not at all. Pleased to assist. And look forward to meeting you and your classmate at the club.
Yes, thank you. Goodbye then.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
Cut 2.
You will hear a man being interviewed on the radio about his work as a musician and a guitar maker. Before you listen, you have 30 seconds to read questions 11 to 14.
Great to have you here today, Hamish. I've been a fan of yours for ages. The very first rock concert I went to when I was 13, your band was playing.
Gosh! I'd like to thank this station too, Juliet. If I remember rightly, Ray Rogers' interest in Soundhole's second album put us on the map.
Good old Ray. Alas, who could forget when Soundhole broke up and Ray wept live on his show?
But to set the record straight, Soundhole isn't getting back together despite rumours on social networks. My performing days are over.
Even solo?
Especially solo. Frankly, solo gigs were a nightmare. I was so anxious every time I went out onto a stage. Live audiences seriously scare me.
Yet you've got such a rapport with them. You look so relaxed in those clips on YouTube.
Yeah, well, one thing the social networks did get right is the reason I quit performing.
Oh?
I was manic when I was on the road with the band. Crazy. I'd stay up days on end. Back home, I was horribly depressed. I'd sleep for a week. My life was a mess. My first wife left me, and my second wife left me. I've got 3 children I hardly know. My son sent me a card just before Soundhole split up, in which he'd written he'd seen more of me on TV than in the flesh.
Before you listen to the rest of the talk, you have 30 seconds to read questions 15 to 20.
So how long have you been making acoustic guitars, Hamish?
Full-time for about 3 years. My sister and I work together. She sources the materials and does the books. I build the instruments.
I checked on the internet last night, and it's a long process to make a guitar.
You bet. There's at least 15 steps. I won't go into them all now, but sourcing the wood, the first step, is crucial. Cheap guitars use softer wood, which equates with poorer sound quality. But harder wood is scarce these days. For instance, the back of a great guitar, historically, was made from Brazilian rosewood, but the supply is minuscule now. I use East Indian rosewood, which will also disappear soon. Likewise, spruce was once preferred for the top of a guitar, but I use cedar, which is more plentiful.
I thought guitars were mainly mahogany.
Cheap guitars, yes, but only the necks of good ones. The neck must resist distortion when pulled by the strings, and it mustn't swell or contract with changes in temperature and humidity. Mahogany's perfect for the neck.
I like that wavy pattern you get on the tops and backs of guitars. How's that done?
That pattern is called book matching. A thickish block of wood about half the size of the body is sliced horizontally. The two pieces are laid together with the grain continuous before they're glued.
Right.
The next two steps are to saw the top of the guitar into that sensual shape and cut out the sound hole.
What's inside the guitar to control its vibration and improve its tone?
Braces. Narrow little bits of wood, glued in an X pattern. The process is known as strutting. The back also has strutting to reflect sound waves.
Interesting. How's the neck made?
It's carved from a single piece of mahogany, and a metal rod is driven up into it for reinforcement.
How'd you get those lovely curved sides?
Strips are cut, sanded, and soaked in water. They're moulded until they're set in that shape. When everything's been glued together, the back, the sides, the top, and the neck, the guitar is put into clamps for several days. There are some other reinforcements too, like end blocks and bindings.
I guess precision is the key to much of this work.
Absolutely. In fact, guitar making has improved my mental health because everything's nice and slow and precise. I'm alone in my workshop, dealing with wood. It has a calming effect.
It seems as though you sound whole again.
Please, no more silly puns on the name of our band. I spent 14 years explaining that whole was spelt with a W.
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3.
Part 3.
You will hear a conversation between two students planning a research project. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 23. As you listen to the first part of the conversation, answer questions 21 to 23.
We'd better start planning our research project because we don't have much time left before it's due.
I know, only 3 more weeks.
Is that all? I thought we had more time than that. Well, let's get to work then.
Okay, so we agreed we're going to interview shoppers about their spending habits. Did we decide to conduct our interviews at the department store?
We haven't decided anything definitely yet, but I think the shopping mall would be a better place. We'd get more of a variety of shoppers there.
Yes, that's a good point. So let's do that. How many interviews did the professor say we had to complete?
She said at least 30. That sounds like a lot, doesn't it?
Yes, but if we divide it up between the two of us, that's just 15 each. That's not so bad.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions
24 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 24 to 30.
Okay, so I guess we'd better start designing our questionnaire.
Well, we have to do some reading first, don't we?
Didn't we say we were going to compare our results to the results of a government study? Right, the government study about how the economic crisis has changed people's spending habits. We want to see if we get similar results.
Yes, so we'd better read that first and then design our questionnaire. Then I guess we'll be ready to go out and interview shoppers.
No, don't you remember? The professor said she had to approve our questionnaire first before we actually conducted the interviews.
Oh, right. So we'll get her approval and then conduct the interviews. I think a Saturday would be the best day for the interviews because everyone's out shopping then.
Right, we'll do it on a Saturday then.
And let's also plan to get together the next day to analyse the results. It's best to do that while everything's fresh in our minds, don't you think?
Sure, that sounds like a good idea. Okay, so then we're going to have to present our results to the class. Do you have any ideas for that? It's an important part of our grade, so I think we should plan it well.
Well, I think the obvious thing is to prepare some charts showing our results and how they compare with the government study. That will help make the information a lot clearer to the class.
Right. Okay, so we'll draw up some charts of the results.
And then that's it. All that will be left to do is give the class presentation. Do you think we can be ready on time?
I sure hope so. Let's get started now.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
Part 4. You will hear a lecture on self-fulfillment. Before you listen, read questions 31 to 40.
As you may know, I've been working as a psychologist since the 1990s. In the past few years in this city, we've enjoyed unparalleled prosperity. All the same, people come to me with concerns about the future, or should I say, their future. One trend I've noticed is an increase in clients who, at least on paper, lead ideal lives, yet worry that they're not fulfilling themselves, however elusive that might be. Let me give you an example. A woman in her late 20s came to me a month or so ago. She's an HR manager for a big company. She lives in a nice part of town, and she's been engaged for 9 months. Her last holiday was to Tibet, and she's just resumed sailing. In good health, she appeared not to be suffering from clinical depression. Nevertheless, she felt the world owed her more. I questioned her about her career choice and life partner. Were they really right for her? In both cases, the answer was yes. I asked if she spent time with her family. Indeed, and everyone got along fine. I queried her on her friends. She had some from college and some more from work. I asked if she'd ever done any voluntary work. Again, yes was her reply. After graduation, she'd spent 2 months at an orphanage in Nepal before trekking in the Himalayas. In her current life, however, she felt she didn't have time to volunteer, what with work, her fiancé, sailing, and a love of travel. She hopes to go to Argentina if she can inveigle her boss into allowing her an extra week's leave. I asked my client what she thought self-fulfillment might be, but she couldn't put a finger on it. I saw her 3 times and suggested she read Nelson Mandela's autobiography. But she didn't keep her 4th appointment. So why did I suggest Mandela's book? I could equally have directed her toward the writing of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Martin Luther King, or a philosopher like Immanuel Kant. None of them seemed aggrieved about missing opportunities for self-fulfillment or trips to Tierra del Fuego, and 2 of whom gave meaning to their lives through decades of self-sacrifice. That is, they did what they had to do. As do people who live just a 2-hour drive from here. I mean those in rural areas or towns that are virtually ghost towns, not to mention the billions in the developing world. If they do get through school, they don't leave declaring, "Now I must do what I love doing. Now I must be fulfilled." Even my mother did what she had to do. Originally from Puerto Rico, she brought up her children on her own while working 3 jobs. She considered it more important to put us through college than to go herself, even though she was clever enough. Likewise, she nursed her sister with cancer and cooked meals for elderly neighbors. I'm not saying I was raised by a saint, but in mature people, the notion of self-fulfillment seldom arises. Let's return to Martin Luther King, who believed there are 3 dimensions to our lives: length, breadth, and height. Length refers to self-love, and breadth to the community and care of others. For some of us, especially the young, height may be difficult to accept or to find. For King, it was unequivocally God, although the transcendent doesn't have to be a religious experience. It translates roughly as being part of something greater than oneself. It could be an ideal, like equality or justice. The reason height may be hard for the me generation to come to grips with is that it requires a disciplined willingness to submerge one's own desires. In a world of instant gratification, that's a big ask. In my own work as a psychologist, I've now questioned my years of guiding clients towards the do what you love principle. It may be elitist, denigrating work that is done not from love, like my mother's dawn shift in a bakery, which no amount of free donuts could sweeten. I don't believe gifts come from God, so it's our duty not to squander them, but I am persuaded that focusing one's talents on things outside oneself is more important than constant self-improvement. Of course, it's wonderful to do what we like, particularly when we're good at it, but from time to time, we should also do what we hate for the benefit of others. If this is a bitter pill to swallow, relish the bitterness. There lies your self-fulfillment.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.